These are quotes I might make on particular days of the week. What happened to the weekend? I hate Mondays, the most productive day of the week. So how come I spend so much of it in meetings being non-productive? Phew, I made it to the middle of the week. Hump day, the start to the downward sprint to the weekend. Starting to feel stressed now. It's Friday tomorrow, and I've only completed 1 out of the 5 tasks I had planned for the week. And now I have another 3 tasks. Thank goodness it's Friday. Only a few more hours until the weekend. Basically wishing your life away. And you spend as much time as possible trying to cram all of your personal goals into 2 days of the weekend. If you've had enough of this, then what you need is a change plan. If you're fed up of this 9 till 5 routine and feeling like the weekends should be 5 days and the work week should be 2 days, then I've been there. I've had that feeling, and that's when I was able, through plenty of negotiating, to create my real 2-day work week and 5-day weekend. And that really was what I would call my change plan, which I had back in originally, back end of 2024, and was able to implement that by mid 2025. And like I've put here, change plan is a plan that will step by step allow you to change behaviors and activities that will allow you at a predetermined point in the future to take that first big step away from full-time working towards full-time living. It won't happen overnight, so it will take careful planning, perseverance, persistence, and patience. And what that plan looked like in the end really was a 3-step plan. I never really thought much about my pension. I knew it was free money because the company matched your contribution up to a certain percentage. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for me to put the minimum in and then get the minimum from the company. But what occurred to me later, probably much too late, is that if you pay money into your pension via salary sacrifice, that money is taken out of your salary before tax and national insurance is applied. So it's a good way of saving money, especially if you're a higher rate taxpayer. And that's something that you can look into. So really, there's that first step of planning. Create a personal budget. This is surprising because until you sit down and do that, you don't actually know where your money goes. When I was working full-time, spending all the money I had, pretty much spending everything I earned, not because I particularly wanted to do that. I didn't have an extravagant lifestyle. But when you've got young children and they're growing up, you're moving home, you're supporting them, you're supporting your rest of your extended family as well as much as you can. Sometimes the money just isn't there. So you need to calculate your budget based on today's expenditure. The easiest way to do it, you can go through your statements on your banking app and you'll see the repeat things happening. Add things in there like entertainment, nights out, going out for meals, stuff like this. Try and capture it all. You could, for example, what I do, I say like every month allocate £100 just for going out. But it's a little fund which say, well, that's the allocation for doing that activity. And you can round it up as much as you like. The more detail, the better, to be honest, but you don't need to go crazy on your first attempt. So once you've created that for a month, do it as an average. Look back over the last 3 months, and you'll see a pattern probably forming. And then just do an average of that for this month and the next 12 months. And then what you'll have is you'll have an average for the year. We're going through an exercise, and the purpose of the exercise is to build a pattern, and then that pattern can help us make some decisions about what we want to do next. Take your time with this. When I created my budget, it took me several weeks because I was doing it in between other things. You've been working for probably the best part of 30 plus 40 years. If you're getting towards retirement, there's no rush now, take your time. So that's step 1, create your budget, write it down, make sure that it's believable. Once you've done that, whatever age you're at, if you're 50 now and you think, okay, I want to retire by the time I'm 60, 10 years time, forecast forward that annual budget. What am I going to spend? Adjust it for inflation each year. I used 3.5%. And then at the end of 10 years on your budget sheet, it will tell you how much you need per year to live the life to the quality that you're expecting to live it to. It says here, retirement living standards based on independent research by Loughborough University has been developed to help individuals picture what kind of lifestyle they could have in retirement and the costs involved. the difference between what they say the budget is. So the minimum for a single person is just under £13,500 per year. For two people, it's around £21,500 per year. The moderate standard of living for a single person is just under £32,000, and for two people is around £44,000. So that looks like the sort of lifestyle I'm aiming to live when I fully retire. It's not extravagant, but I don't want to be sat in worrying about the pennies. And then for a comfortable standard of living for a single person is around £44,000, and for two people is around £60,500. There's lots more detail here. You can look into the sort of costs you'd have for maintaining a house, eating, transport, holidays and leisure, closed each year, donate to charity. So it's all broken down here. There's a table. You can select for one people or two people and it switches. I think this is a good starting place if you haven't really started to think about budgeting for retirement. The things they were saying, these are typical activities, didn't all apply to me, which is why even if you start here at some point, it's still a good idea to make your own personalized budget, because only you know what you think you might want to do when you retire. Like it says here at the bottom, everyone's financial circumstances are different. The standards provide a guide based on common costs for many people in retirement, but there will be a pick and mix element. Some retirees may find that they have elements of all three, depending on their own future priorities. So think about what you will be doing, but based on the cost that you know to date. If you're 50 now and you're thinking, I want to retire at 60, you've got to create a budget for when you're 60. So add that inflation factor in, that'll give you a number, and then that's the number that you need to think about when you're planning to retire at age 60. So step 2 is to look at what you've got in your pension, look at what you've got in your savings and investment accounts, look at what equity as well you've got in property, and then all of that becomes your assets. And then if you add up the total of your assets, take that value, compare it against income per year, and then just in simple terms, if you divide that value by your annual cost when you retire, without factoring all of the complicated compound interest and stuff like this, if you've got 10 times the amount of value in your assets as it is for 1 year of living in retirement, you've basically got enough money in your assets to live for 10 years when you retire. Now, in reality, if you're planning to retire at 60, you'd hope that you'd want to live beyond 70. And again, there's stats. You can Google the stats. What the average life expectancy might be for yourself based on when you were born. It's a sad fact, I know, but you can get all this information online. You can find out what your life expectancy is. So for me, I believe my life expectancy is 83 years old. So if I was retiring at 50, I'd need to have enough income in retirement to last from 50 to age 83, so 33 years. Starting to think properly about what income and assets you might have when you retire. Why am I saying all this? Because what step 2 does, it gives you bucket, this is what I have, these are my assets, this is what income I can generate from those assets in my early years of retirement. And the second bucket is, it's not really a bucket, it's a tap. You turn this tap, and each year I'm going to be draining down or drawing down on that bucket a certain amount every year until that bucket is dry. To stop the bucket getting dry, we need to move to step 3. More decisions are needed here, actually. If your life expectancy is 83, for example, you're planning to retire at 60, the decision you want to make is, by the time I reach age 83, I'm probably not going to be that active, not as active as I was at 60. I'm probably not going to be spending as much. I'm not going to be traveling as much. Probably won't even be going out eating as much. By the time I get to 83, would the state pension be enough for me to survive on if I live beyond 83? It's a morbid topic, I know. The reality is you have to think about this. If you seriously want to plan for your future and you don't want to run out of money, and you do have a lifestyle expectation beyond a certain age, you need to plan for it financially. There's also a huge emotional aspect to all of this, moving from full-time working to full-time living, full-time working to full-time retirement. There's a massive emotional challenge there, which I will talk about in future videos. For me personally, the financial stuff is straightforward. It's all about data. It's black and white. You write it down, you put it in a spreadsheet, you press some buttons, it tells you what the answer is. The answer is, you haven't got enough money, mate. You're going to have to start saving more. If you're an average person like me, that money will run out eventually, because I can't retire without drawing down on that capital element. If you can retire without drawing down on your capital element, then you're fine. Your money, in theory, shouldn't ever run out. Let's get back on to step 3. Step 3 is about understanding what the gap is. So you've done all the calculations. You know what your income might be when you retire at age 60. You know you need a certain amount of income. You do the calculations. Your pot falls down, it shrinks. You realise you've spent all your money by the time you're 75. So you've got a shortfall from 75 to age 83. What do you do about it? If you've done your calculations correctly, that should tell you how much you need to save now between your age 50 and when you retire at 60 to make sure that your retirement fund is going to then be big enough at age 60. There will still be money in the pot when you're pushing age 83 a few years later. I've talked across a few topics here. It's really 10,000 foot view, really high level view. And the purpose of this is to make you think about not just wanting to retire, but properly thinking about what it's going to take to make retirement a reality. Create your budget, work out what it costs you every month now to live, work out what it's going to cost based on the lifestyle you want when you retire. It may be the same as what you're doing now, maybe different, but adjust your budget anyway. Make it try and look like your reality, not other people's. Use the retirementlivingstandards.org.uk website. That's useful to get you going. Once you've done that, look at your pension fund, look at your partner's pension fund, look at any investments, any assets you might have. And then when you've done that, you'll know what your potential shortfall is. Don't worry about compound interest, return on investments. This is just big money stuff. If your budget says you need £100,000 and you've only got £10,000, you know you need £90,000 roughly to save between now and when you retire. If your budget says you need £1 million and you've only got £600,000, you need £400,000 between now and when you retire. All the purpose of this high level stuff is to make you start thinking about changes you need to make in what you're doing now with your money and your job, so that when you get to your target retirement age, you've got some options, and it's just about options. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to add a comment. Let me know where you are with your retirement planning journey. If you're in retirement already, let me know how you're getting on. Let me know what sort of plan you came up with, which allowed you to retire. That would be interesting to hear. I hope you found that useful. It took a lot of time and effort for me to put this one together. Use what you want to use. If it's not useful to you, then just skip over it. In the next one, I'll show you how this played out for me. The plan, the setbacks, and where I eventually ended up. All that's left for me to say now is thank you for watching. Take care, have fun, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.